On today's program, tactile warning surface indicators are used to improve accessibility in public spaces. But are they being used effectively? Marco Pasqua discusses the good, the bad, and all in between. Also today, Michael Babcock has creative ways to use AI in your life. AI? What is this AI thing?
This is Kelly and Company.
Rolling out of your weekend and joining us for another week on Kelly and Company. Thank you, Kelly McDonald here, Nisreen Abdel-Majid, our technical producer right there. Good day to you. How was the weekend?
Oh, pretty good. Happy Monday.
Thank you. Thank you. All set for another busy week as we kind of navigate through, and people have heard us talk about this before. What is the busiest day? And before we went on the air, we were discussing because of using up vacation time and stuff like that. In other words, the way we put it is, what is the most inconvenient way to the team that I can take a
hmm
day off so I'm not inconveniencing the team? Uh,
Absolutely.
Age-old question this, and you had questions over the weekend as part of our Twitter poll.
Yeah. So we asked you guys on Friday on Twitter, how do you plan on spending your weekend? And the options were relaxing at home, catching up on chores and errands, socializing with loved ones, or other. And the results were 14% for relaxing at home, 14% for chores and errands, and 29% for socializing with loved ones, and finally 43% say other. And I wish you
Wow.
guys specified what other means. I think it's maybe work and school because a lot of people have been really, doing overtime, especially around the holidays, so people can take more time off. So for me, it was catching up on chores and errands, I have to say. It's
Hmm.
between that and seeing loved ones. So it was a pretty chill, it's more chill than other weekends. Usually I work on weekends, so it's nice.
More relaxing at this end. What I find interesting is so many workplaces are having work parties earlier and earlier,
Yeah.
or waiting until January and doing a holiday party afterward. One of the things I thought was really cool is the local television station the other day had a little rundown of all the Santa Claus parades in the area, and there's just a boatload of them. Unbelievable. Really nice to hear, and a real feel. That, and of course, you have all of the bazaars that are on the Christmas, events where you can go out, buy some gifts, buy ornaments, and just really get into the feel in November. And I think it's great because November, we're always saying it's a bit of a dreary month with the
hmm
darkness, the rain. Um, do you ever take in Christmas parades? Is that something you liked at any point in life, or would still, keep on the possibly the list to do every year or two?
I've had fun experiences during Christmas parades in Toronto.
Ah, right.
Growing up, when I was visiting in sick kids, sometimes I would be in and out. And as an inpatient, they would allow some of the kids to go right outside of the hospital in the wheelchair or whatever. And if you're able to, you can watch the parade from there. And we had
Oh,
great views of the parade. It was right on University Street, and it was just so much fun. It was beautiful, and it was exciting. When you're being so cramped up in the hospital all the time, it's nice to have that experience still, even though you're in the hospital. So it was every year. So like I did it for 5 years of just experiencing that. So it was really nice.
Brock Richardson was saying, they had theirs in Kitchener, and he lives right on the actual parade route. I, at one
Oh,
point, my first apartment in London lived 3 blocks, 2.5, 3 blocks area, from the parade route. So I used to love it, and that was back in the day that it was on a Saturday morning. So I could actually grab my travel mug, fill it up with hot chocolate, and go and stand out there. And as soon as it was done, be back and inside where it was warm within 10 minutes. And that's when the parade was bigger. It was like an
yeah.
hour and 10, 15 minutes. Now the only time it seems like it's an hour is if they stop it
I have a
and let
question
a
for you
band
though.
play. Yeah.
If you know how when it gets too crazy, like for me right now that I think about it, it gets so crazy around the Christmas parades or anything happening in Toronto, let's just say. I feel too anxious to even leave the house or go
Yep.
around that area
Yep.
when it's
Yep.
too many people. So now I don't know like what's the difference between when I was younger or now, but I just get more anxious when there's just too many people. So does that make you just want to stay home and watch it from, on social media or
I
TV?
Yeah, I get more description at home, right? As my vision's gotten worse. I mean, often
True.
family, of course, would give me as much description as possible. I would get an idea from the people yelling off of their float and everything. But I started to turn, I won't say against it. It turned me off when they started to be at nighttime. And I get it, the lights and the fanciness that people like to have. But I found that gives too many people enough time to drink through the day, whether they have families or not, get on the buses. You get such a mix of people, and it being downtown, there's just so many negative element that starts to work its way
Yeah.
into
And
before,
okay, there are
during, and
lights.
after.
Okay, there are lights, but I feel like at the same time, that's all there is at night because you
That's
can't
all
see
there
the
is.
rest.
And kids
And
are
you're j
staying up, for what reason?
Yeah, it's just as crazy just getting home. It's not convenient for
Yeah.
anybody. So it makes
Yeah.
0 sense. Yeah.
London has about 3 of them. One out in the East End, the downtown one, which is the main one or first one, and then we have one that's, out, in the Northwest End, and they're all very different, different times a day, and I love it. I thought at first when I first realized, "We have 3 of them, what?" That's kind of a little Santa saturation, but no, it really is nice, and I will say this, I think it makes people very thankful. Let's welcome in Fern Lulham as we're very thankful today to be talking about gratitude with Fern Lulham as she joins us on the program from the UK. Fern, hello.
Kelly, what a seamless link. You've been doing this a while, haven't you?
I think you
Yeah,
practiced it.
yeah. I mean, in front of the mirror earlier, you kind of work on these things.
Yeah.
Okay, just like off the top. Fern, are you a parade person? What's your thoughts on this Santa Claus parade racket? Oh, did I
Oh,
say
yeah,
that?
I
Santa
mean,
Claus parade.
yeah, I was just listening to you there talking about it. I was thinking in the UK, I don't think we go as all out as you do, but there are some, and I think here you were saying like it gets later and later. For us, it's dark at like I don't know 4:30, like 4 o'clock around that time. So it's halfway through the
Yes.
afternoon. Bring out the lights. I mean, you don't have to stay
Mhm.
up. It's fine.
Yeah, I think because in my head, and again, we're all, if you like a Santa Claus parade, you're an adult, you're an overaged kid, right? Which is the way to be. I really, as I mentioned on this program last week, I like the idea of going to a parade, then everybody goes shopping, looking around, or the kids get telling you what they want, but there's a Santa Claus in stores that are nearby where they can
Yeah.
go in and Santa, this is what I'd like, this is what, and I really feel that's a tremendous thing. Also, Nazreen, I don't know if you've had the opportunity, and Fern, obviously you can weigh in on this too, but I'm thinking with going in your younger years, Nazreen, as a kid, especially involved with the hospital, did you ever ride in a parade?
No, I've never gotten to experience that. That
It's
sounds
fun.
fun though.
It
So
is.
you've
Yeah.
experienced that?
Yeah, I did it a couple of times. Once on a float, and the other time we were inside one of the radio station vehicles when I was about 9 or 10, and,
Ooh.
this was back when I horseback rode, and the Special Ability Riding Academy that I went to actually had a few, and probably have in recent years, I haven't noticed them in it in recent years, but they used to get a float or be a part, sign on to someone else's, and that was a real rush. My dad would take me down there, get me set up where we were supposed to, and then all of a sudden he'd return in a Bert or an Ernie costume or something like that because they'd talk him into walking alongside the float. So it was really, really fun. Fern, you've ever done that?
I haven't. I mean, I just like how you casually throw in, "Oh, some of us have actually been part of the parade." I mean,
Well,
we're not
I don't
all
want to
that
be
lucky,
too
I'm afraid.
egotistical,
Nope,
right?
he's bragging here.
Yeah, they come to the 11-year-old and say, "How much would it cost us to get you, Mr. McDonald, in the parade?" Well, how many Christmas cookies do you have available? I'd be very thankful for them. So, Fern, we are talking
Absolutely.
gratitude with you today. See, we keep doing it, right? Spoil a
Yeah,
good thing.
you can just
Um,
keep on repeating. Yeah.
Oh, exactly, for the next 15 minutes, so just to warm everybody up. This is nice because it encourages our American friends out there checking us out on YouTube or via the podcast to start practicing because American Thanksgiving is later this week. Um, is there a difference between gratitude and appreciation, Fern? Or really are they the same?
Yes. Yes. Well, you were talking there about how November is a bit of like a boring month, and it's sort of nearly Christmas, but not quite. So I thought, let's celebrate Thanksgiving. Why not? Let's just all enjoy it, the American version. So yes, there is a difference. It's subtle, but it is there. So when we think of gratitude, it's more about like a relational feeling of someone has done something for me. So that might be a person, it might be like a more of a spiritual someone has done something for me, but it's like I have received something. Whereas
Ah,
appreciation is more to do with appreciating the value or the beauty in something. So, look, we might say, I appreciate the sound of a bird song. I appreciate the Christmas parade. I appreciate, someone baking me a lovely. Oh no, sorry, that would be gratitude. If somebody bakes you a lovely cake, you would be receiving that cake, so you'd be grateful for it. Whereas if you baked the cake, you might appreciate the taste of it or the smell of it, and you might have gratitude and appreciation together. You might experience both those feelings, but they do have that subtle difference. Do you see that?
yeah. Smells give you sometimes like there's such different feelings, different reactions. So being either of these, gratitude, what would be the positive things in the way of physically to us that it might do?
Yes, well, there's lots of benefits. So it releases that lovely dopamine, that good feeling within us. It encourages us to see that even though there's lots of things going on in our lives that might be stressful, that might be anxiety provoking, there's also some really good things and some positive things that we can focus on as well. So it just sort of helps us to redress that balance, and it lowers our stress levels and our anxiety because we're enjoying and appreciating those more positive things, which helps us to stop focusing so much on all of the things that are going wrong and shift that focus to thinking, actually, let's just enjoy some of the stuff that is going well and we actually quite appreciate and can make the most out of. Because I think our brains, as we've talked about lots of times before on this show, are very much wired towards the negative sometimes, and that's for our survival and to protect us. But there is also a place to say, while not everything is, roses and everything's fine, there are some moments in life that we just fully can enjoy and get the most out of that we possibly can and value.
Yeah. I mean, we all like when someone recognizes, whether it's a manager at work, hey, you did that project really well, or someone that says, hey, that's a really nice shirt on you. Wow, I like
Yes.
that. It just seems to do, it makes you feel good. I don't know which thing makes you feel better. I mean, I guess being patted on your back by your manager makes you feel, whew, job security. The shirt is a nice thing because, man, I'm glad I look good in this. Or, hey, you got to ride in the parade. I'm really thankful, especially since everybody's saying, hey, man, that's cool. I've never got to do that, but I have. Um, they elicit the different feelings based on that, the reactions that you get, and some of us, one way or the other, may be more important than the other. We may look for compliments more than feel as much good feeling being told, "Hey, that project at work here, this is great." Well, of course it was.
Yes, and it's interesting because you have there outlined the difference, whereas with the boss that is saying, "Oh, I like that," they're appreciating that about you. You've got a great shirt, you did really well on that project. I appreciate that. Whereas almost the riding in the parade is more gratitude. That's an opportunity that you have been given, you have received it, therefore you can be grateful for it.
You appreciate. Then when we talk about, those things that we, "Hey, it's really nice here," or "I love this," those reactions that, and again, I think a lot of us know, somebody can say, "Oh my goodness, I love, the feel of standing in the woods when the temperature's X degrees." It's just such a warming and wonderful feeling, and we talk about the appreciation.
Yes. Yeah. And there's so many benefits to that, for our brain because it involves a lot of different parts of our brain kind of coming online. And there's lots of good things that go along with that. Like in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, not to get too scientific and psychological, but that's basically the part of the brain that we use to make our decisions, right? So if anyone out there is just like me and struggles with decision making choices going round and round in circles, having gratitude and appreciation can actually make that better because it's lowering your anxiety and it's stopping you from thinking, oh, but maybe, doubting yourself and lowering your self esteem and all of that kind of stuff. So that's really good. Then we have the hypothalamus, which is all about sleep and sleep quality. And when we are
Ah,
grateful for things, research shows that actually we sleep better. Then, of course, we're talking about the emotions that are involved. We've got to go to the amygdala, which is, as you may know, kind of like the emotional center of the brain. Almost if you're watching Inside Out, that's what you're watching, the amygdala, where all of your emotions are kept. And when we are grateful for stuff and we show appreciation, what that does is it stops us so much from acting from a place of fear and helps us to act more from a place of intent. So we act more in alignment with who we authentically are rather than kind of being very reactive or defensive. And then
Right.
finally, the insula, which is another part of the brain. The insula basically is all to do with how you feel and connecting that to how you physically feel in your body. So, not only is this a way of calming your mind, but it's also a way of calming your body and soothing yourself so that you don't have those sweaty palms, that racing heart. You're just feeling as a whole person so much better, so much,
Okay.
relief.
Well, and it makes sense 100%. But what else does gratitude do when it comes to like our interactions, our social circle, the
Mm.
people in our world, and how people may view us or feel we view them?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you mentioned the boss, saying, I really like your shirt, or I really like the way that you've done that project. That's lovely because, like you said, it makes us feel valued. It makes you feel like I'm working so hard, and actually that's been acknowledged, and somebody sees that. Because we know that some of the most negative emotions come from this feeling that I am chipping away, I'm doing everything I can, and nobody is even noticing. So it's just so
Yes.
nice to bring in that connectivity, that, the appreciation there, and be able to, like you said, have a bit more self-esteem and feel like we bring worth to any environment where people are, but also to build that empathy with people, because I think when people are grateful to us and show their appreciation, we are able to kind of put ourselves in their place a bit more, and we're usually able to be more tolerant of them. So when they do things that are challenging to us, we can, we might be annoyed about that, but we can sort of remember, oh, but the other day actually they did say a really nice thing about me. So it kind of increases our patience for people, and helps us to just feel more bonded to them, and, a strengthened connection there. And it just really helps us to sort of see some of their bad things in a different light, because we can put them in perspective a bit more.
Okay. So, Fern, with that being said, in the time of year we're venturing into past the American Thanksgiving, Christmas time, there's an old
Yes.
UK grumbly pot that we're aware of, Mr. Scrooge, a star of a
Yes.
certain book out there named after himself. Can we? Because I'm sure he was not really appreciative, wasn't really grateful until a lesson was learned from those visits. But what about the rest of us? Some of us just naturally don't know necessarily what to say, don't feel comfortable.
Mm.
How can we practice that kind of gratitude? Those tips, what do we do?
Great question. I feel like you're asking me to be the three spirits that visited
Yes,
Scrooge in the night now, and I'm
all
happy to take on
wise.
that role. So, yes, so some of the things we can do, writing things down. So that could be, physically pen and paper writing them down, but also on your phone, any kind of way. It's about externalizing emotions. We have a lot of thoughts and emotions going around in our head. And when we write them down, it just makes them more concrete. Obviously, as well, we can read them back. And so we can remember the nice things that have happened, and we can, just put it into a more solid form, into
For
words,
sure.
so we can make
Yeah.
more meaning out of it and understand it and see our patterns better. And then also, I think the easiest way to practice gratitude on an ongoing basis is try and integrate it into your daily routine. So connect it to something you do every day. So you might do it the first thing when you wake up. You might do it the last thing before you go to bed. You might do it when you have a meal, so that it's just built in. So you don't have to think about it so much, because it just becomes part of your daily routine. Another thing, when we talked about, our relationships with other people, is just thinking, how can I show my appreciation? So that might look like thank you notes. That might look like I'm going to pick someone every month and I'm just going to do something for them. It doesn't have to be expensive. It might be just, buying a little gift, or it might just be sending them a voice note and saying, oh, thank you so much. I just wanted you to know how much you mean to me and how much I value you. Because actually, we know that as much as receiving things feels good, giving is part of that good feeling as well, and can have
Yeah.
all sorts of good benefits. So that can help. And also, another thing I would say is maybe have a gratitude jar or have like a collage on your phone of things that just make you remember the things that in your life are actually good. So if you're having a really stressful day, you can take that step back and go, oh, yeah, I'm having a bad day, but actually, I really love this thing. This thing makes me smile and makes me very happy.
Awesome. Okay, let's get into the general advice that you're so awesome at giving us always. What are some of the effects that we should look at here? What are the little things we can do outside of some of that start day or at the end of the day things to practice this, especially for those of us that it may not come as easy to be grateful or appreciative?
Yeah, I would say start really small. Because I think with a lot of these things, meditation or, these big things that we think, oh, I've got to do it. And there's so much to it. And look at everyone else. They're all doing it so perfectly. And it takes them, 5 hours a day. I don't have that amount of time. Just say, okay, I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to think of one thing every day that I'm grateful for. It's not going to take you long. It's going to be very simple. And if you need to, have prompts. There's lots of things you can find on the internet, or there's conversations you can have with other people where you might just have one question. What is something that I am proud of myself for today? What have I done for somebody else that made me feel good, or what has somebody else done for me that made me feel good? Just those little things of reminding yourself, drip feeding yourself that positivity, which can be really helpful. And then the other thing I'd say about is maybe having accountability partners or a group of you that says, once a week when we get together as a friend group, let's say, for example, we're all going to say something that we really, appreciated about this week or felt good about. Because quite often when we get together with our friends, I don't know about you, but we spend a lot of time moaning and ranting about things. And it would just be nice
Never.
sometimes to go,
Yeah.
actually, I had a really good day the other day. Let's talk about that instead.
It's a nice thing, right? When somebody's excited to tell you about something really cool that happened and share that with you, the friends. I mean, I love people being comfortable enough to rant or tell me about the bad things, but I love
Mhm.
the mix of things just so that you do feel and you don't get so drained.
Exactly. Exactly. We need to have a well-rounded view of the world because otherwise we can just think that everything's bad.
Well, yeah, it's pretty easy to fall into that one, that's for sure. Fern, thankful to have you in for the conversation today, and we'll start taking advantage and being a little, maybe even a little more grateful. You cannot have too much of that, and take advantage of being appreciative. Take care. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Indeed, I am so thankful for your smooth links. Have a wonderful show.
All right, thank you. There, see, I feel good. I'm grateful for that. What gratitude, as Fern Lulham pointed out, gratitude grows over time, but definitely it is a practice, folks. Nazreen, I have a question for you about saying thank you. Do you ever feel that a lot of our thank yous, just like, hey, how are you today? Oh, I'm fine. I'm whatever, is mechanical? Are we like that with our thank yous?
I think so. I think so. I know that like I grew up learning to just be thankful for any little thing.
Hmm.
And it's just in our culture. After I say like, okay, thanks to God that I have this like outfit, thanks to God that I have this food on the table. And I think it's really important for those people that um just think about the little things that you could be thankful for. I think it's beautiful, and it just gives you a reminder that there's other people that don't have the stuff that you have, or that are going through much worse stuff that you're than you're going through. So it's just a little reminder to stay positive and appreciate yourself as well, appreciate other people. And that's
Yeah.
that's how I
Yeah,
see
because
it. I think
we're very reactive, right, in that sense,
yeah.
and you know what you were taught, you know what you should be doing, but do we, over growing up and over time, kind of lose the messaging inside our head as
I
to
think so.
why you're saying thank you, how come you're appreciative? It's sort of like if you have that beautiful and are able to see it, view.
Mhm.
You stand at the, maybe the top of a hill and you look out over the city, the town, the countryside, and the sunsets are just amazing over the lake or something like that. The 6th or 10th, 20th time, some of us just won't appreciate it as much. Some of us
I
may
I
always,
get
but
that.
that's a small number, right? Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like a lot of people, okay, I'm gonna start with me. For me, there's so many moments where I forget to say I'm thankful for anything, and I just want to rant and complain. And just have a moment to myself and grieve in a way, quote unquote grieve. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but if you're going through something hard, it's easy to forget to be thankful for everything that you
Hmm.
have. So I
Well,
think you
and
just needed time to escape,
you
whether it's
want to be
physically or
appreciative. And
yeah.
you wanna be able, though, to be able to express yourself, and I think, like we were talking as we wrap with Fern, it's finding that mid-grain where you're not always pulling yourself down or the people around you, or are you
Mhm.
walking in always being wanting to stay happy that when someone tries to tell you, "Well, I'm actually having a rough day." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, what do you want? Do you want a coffee?" Like, where you
Yeah,
kind of, "Oh, I don't wanna hear that." I know we all get that way at times, and we do have to sometimes remove ourselves from that kind of feel. Fern, I
yeah.
want to go back to the parade discussion just for a moment because I am so curious, and maybe we can put this out on the poll today. How much occupation do people have with Christmas parades and taking the family? Maybe we can find out. Do you still attend? Is it something that you just never have time for, or is there another pre-Christmas event people enjoy more, such as bazaars or something like that? Maybe it's more about the shopping aspect of it. Maybe it is more about the family going to a parade, or even just yourself. So we'll see. Maybe we can put something out on the poll
Mhm.
today about that because I am kind of curious. Do people really? I mean, you watch on social media. There's tons of people at these parades, so I'm curious about that. To our listenership and viewership out there on YouTube, checking us out, or on AMI Audio, 2 p.m. Eastern, weekdays, and of course the podcast. You can look for that poll on X. We'll get it out there. Where else do you post that? You just put it on an X, right?
On yeah, on the Twitter for the Twitter poll, you can follow us on X at Kelly and Co AMI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Folks, you can also email us just to say hey, or weigh in on this too with your comments. We always love comments. Niz likes reading those out when we put a poll up. Kellyco at ami.ca. And of course, you can call us 1-866-509-4545, 1-866-509-4545. Folks, I want to get into something that many of us deal with. You're traveling, you're out and about, and what keeps us safe, what doesn't, or what's our interpretation? We all have it of what can make things even better. Marco Pasqua, co-founder of Meaningful Access Consulting, joins us. Marco, appreciate you being with us. How are you?
Kelly, I am great. I'm grateful for being here with you today. So there we go. I'm carrying on the theme.
Are you a Christmas parade person? Were you at any point?
Y- Yeah, although I do find in my chair like Christmas parades were quite cold, so you got to be dressed appropriately for it, right? The right mittens,
Yes, for
the right
sure.
cocoa, as you said. But I really enjoy like the energy and the buzz that you feel in the environment around you because it's palpable. And I think that there's something for everyone, regardless of our abilities, at environments like that where you feel like you can participate.
Absolutely. Marco, I have to be here doing a little bit of business, so help me out with it. I understand you're going to be on AMI today discussing your new book, as we were speaking about a couple of weeks ago. You're doing that, I believe, tomorrow on their program.
That's right, yeah, and, the book should actually be launching at the end of this month, so I'm really excited. I got the proof copy, the only copy in printed existence, sent to my house over the weekend, so just some final tweaks to the cover, but I'm really, really excited about that. Again, I'm very grateful because this is something that people have been asking me to write a book now for a couple of years, and, it took me 6 months, start to finish to write the book, in between everything else I'm doing. But I'm really excited to share some of my personal stories, some of the things around the responsibility for accessibility. There's something in the book for everybody.
Experience is the best teacher, Marco, and it's so wonderful for you to be gracious enough to do so. I think a lot can be learned when we learn about other people's
Yeah.
experiences. So we look for that conversation. And folks, let me correct myself. That's on audio book review, part of AMI today, where this conversation will happen on tomorrow's show, and you can find that also available as a podcast and on YouTube. All right. Today, let's discuss tactile warning surface indicators, those texture surfaces that you see in public spaces, ladies and gentlemen, meant to warn and guide low vision and blind individuals out there moving around. Let's talk about the importance of them, Marco. Where do you want to begin on this?
Well, I mean, okay, first of all, let's just address the elephant in the room. I know it's somewhat of a boring topic for those who are not in the space, but I found it fascinating because I've covered accessibility from a wide variety of different topics, both on Dave Brown's show previously and, just in my everyday life. But I don't think a lot of people know what TWSIs are all about or tactile warning surface indicators are all about, especially if you're not from the low vision or blind community. But there's so much more than just what they look like. There's so much more than just bumps on the surface of the ground that indicate things. And that's kind of why I wanted to do a deep dive. So we can talk about everything from safety to placement. And Kelly, I was also interested on your perspective as somebody who probably, you use a white cane, I'm assuming, to get around
Yes.
the city when you're navigating and whatnot. And I'm sure that in many cases, these TWSIs are a lifesaver. So I'm just
Oh,
curious on your perspective as well.
and you used the perfect word. I was going to say these things are an absolute lifesaver. Whether it's getting to a corner, and some will say, "Well, yeah, but you can feel the roundedness." I don't care if it's the roundedness. I don't care if it's the bumps. Something's got to let me know from my experience where I am. Something's got to give me that reassurance what I'm doing. I absolutely love them. I have never had enough vision, I guess, where I would say, "Hey, I'm okay. I don't really need to see the color difference. Don't need to feel the texture." But so many circumstances for me I've needed them. How to line up at a corner to cross when I'm walking down alongside the tracks in the subway station, how I can scare people
Yes.
walking right along the line and not and but I know where I am, where I have people, sir, why don't you come away from there before you fall? I'm not going to do that. I know where that line is. I know where to get away. Stairs I'm coming up to. Or whether it's down or up, not tripping. I have found
Yes.
them vital. Would I like to see them used in a bit of a different way? And I'm sure these help people with full vision as well. Yeah, like I would like them to be that pathway to certain things that I can trail with my cane or with my foot. But we also are kind of caught, Marco, and I'm sure you'll touch on this, the halfway between
Yeah.
what is less better than more. So I'm going to ask you as we get into it, can you
Yeah.
explain your reasons why they're so important to you and what role they might play in making these spaces safer? So, people can say, well, it's nice that you have it to know you're close to the track, but do they really make that much of a difference for safety?
Yes, absolutely. And it also depends on the type of material that's being used. The best
Yeah.
material, Kelly, is actually a composite material, which is like a little bit between like a hard plastic,
Right.
especially for outdoors because it lasts longer. Whereas people often assume, oh, well, why don't you just put metal ones outside? And actually, ironically, the metal ones are supposed to be used indoors because the metal ones
Yes.
break away easier, especially next to concrete. So now
Yeah.
those can actually become a tripping hazard. So oftentimes at SkyTrains or subways, you'll see the composite style used in the high vis yellow, and that's going to support individuals with low vision to be able to really see the contrast difference. But where the issue comes in is you work with a lot of designers or architects who want to go in maybe historic areas of the city, and they don't want to necessarily they want to have safety, but they don't want to
Hmm.
necessarily have high vis yellow that affects their design or the overall aesthetic and look of the environment that they're creating. And so this is actually where you can do cast iron or you could do other coloring options so long as there is a little bit of change. And the reason I bring this up is that my wife and I are currently working on a revitalization project in downtown Vancouver in the Gastown region, which has a lot of historic looking
It
features.
does.
And
Yeah.
and what we need to do is make sure that the walkability of that space is still safe for individuals who are blind and have low vision, but doesn't take away from the beauty and aesthetics of the downtown core, especially in the Gastown region. And so we're actually juggling with that balance that you talk about, Kelly, around creating safety, creating the walkability. And you know what was interesting? We went out with some of our friends at the CNIB, and when you're creating spaces that you're not normally supposed to be walking on or across like busy streets, but now they're being deemed as walkable areas, service animals have a really tough time with that because they're
That's
trained to
right.
not walk you into the street. And we were
Yes.
noticing that the service dogs did not want to walk into the areas where cars are normally because of their training. Meanwhile, we're trying to indicate to the dog, it's okay. This is an area
Yeah.
that your owner is allowed to walk in right now.
And
So
I
it
work the
actually
same.
plays a
I've
part of
got
the
I've got an
environment.
area where I'm so worried, especially with no it down part of downtown here, they've no sidewalk. You're still walking on what sidewalk, but it's
Right.
level with the road, right? And that is the
Yeah,
one thing you think a lot about. How does this keep you confused? If you had a whole area blocked off to cars, I'm tending on sticking to the right to go one way and go across to the left
that's
to come
right.
back the other way out of natural.
100%. Yeah. And that's the thing, too, right? It's about creating the flow of traffic. So, as a bit of a nerd and accessibility consultant, I always think, like, how is this going to impact the flow of traffic? How is this going to impact the ability of people to go to certain shops or things like
Right.
this?
Yep.
But also, Kelly, I don't think a lot of sighted people know that there are parallel bars or directional lines that actually indicate off of some curb cuts when TWSIs are placed properly, the direction of traffic and the direction of a crosswalk. And that's a mind blowing thing for a lot of people. They just assume, oh, there's tactile bumps here to indicate, a change is coming. But there's so much more than that. They can actually indicate the
Yes.
direction of the traffic as well. Can you explain a
Yeah.
little bit more about that?
Well, and the thing about that, as you line up to make your crossing, we go back to that safety piece. We go back to,
Mm,
the plow piles up snow here. How does a wheelchair person
yes.
get around that to get down? But how do I line up my feet so that I'm not crossing into the middle of the intersection because of what that thing's telling me on a natural basis with the training I've had? I mean, it's kind of along the lines that the people think the pole indicator is how we know when to cross. They can't figure out magically. It never changes. So how the heck when it's beep, beep, beep all the time, do you know when the light changes? That's not what I'm listening for. It's the never mind. Um, because that, Marco, makes me concerned about the texture when it's frosty, when it's
Yes.
icy, and the wear and tear, depending on what product they're using to make that tactile surface. How long is it going to last? Is there money in the budget to replace? Is there someone keeping an eye on those things? Or is it just the fact that if that sidewalk gets damaged, okay, we'll do something so that people can still use it, but we'll get around to eventually putting back that tactile.
Exactly, right? And that's the thing too. There's budgetary considerations for cities and municipalities when they're doing this, but it is vital and it's super important. And then also there's a balancing act, Kelly, because if we could put in, TWSIs or truncated domes, as we like to call them, for those bumps,
Hmm. Yep.
some of them can actually create issues for individuals with mobility devices because the
Yes. Oh,
smaller that
yeah.
the bumps are, the metal ones, your front casters on a wheelchair, like myself, I'm a manual wheelchair user, they often get caught or stuck inside of those bumps. But not all bumps are created equal. And so, for
Hmm.
individuals in the blind community, they want to make sure they can actually feel the bumps properly. And if you've got things like weather elements that are going to impact that, or, for example, snow might get stuck to the metal more than it would something that's composite because of how metal holds onto cold and metal holds onto heat. So, there's
Slippery.
a lot of decision. Yeah, it makes it slippery, especially
Yeah.
up on a curb cut. But as you
Yeah.
said, on the tops and bottoms of stairways to indicate, hey, by the way, there's a massive change coming. And if you're about to walk down these steps, we need to know at the landings and at the top that you're going to be safe and that there's a rail nearby and things like this. So it really does play with all the other elements in the environment. And this is exactly why, these TWSIs are so, so important, and why we try to stress as consultants to different cities and different transportation providers, you can't just be slapping these down willy nilly. They actually do
No.
serve a
No.
functional purpose. Yeah.
And you've got to know how they should go. Also, are we past, Marco, as you were mentioning, the look? A lot of time, a lot of advocates would say, who cares about the look? It's got to be safe. Whatever you have to use, I don't care how ugly it is in that old area, how much it counterbalances what the look of that area is. You just need to do it. But I think we're at that place where someone in your position as a consultant can not get prosecuted, executed for taking that into account and saying, look, we got to be fair to everyone here, make it safe, make it usable, and make it aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, well, you nailed it, Kelly. Like, if you want to win over designers, you have to let them know, like, listen, I'm not here to take away your overall vision of what you want this space to feel like. But universal design, the reason why it's so good is that it universally makes sense for all people, regardless of their abilities when they enter a space.
Yes.
And so, my whole thing as an advocate and a consultant is you shouldn't have to see the accessibility features in order for them to be there. So, if you can go into a space and you can go, wow, I'm able to use this space and I feel safe and I feel comfortable. But wait a minute, where are the grab bars? Wait a minute, where are all the high vis, lines and indications? And if you can't see those things, even as a sighted person, then it means congratulations, we've done a good job. It means that we've integrated accessibility in such a way that people can just go into a space, regardless of their abilities. They can use that environment in the way in which it's intended. They can do so safely, and we can appease to some of the visual aesthetics for those that it does matter to. So I do think
Are
that there is a balance.
are we at that balance, that place with the balance where it may take you time, maybe even a mobility lesson or two, or just using a space to take advantage of all of them? I'm speaking to those pathways that maybe you come in, the door takes
Mm,
you after you've got like a transit station, for example, where you've
yep.
got your pass shown, you've moved or paid your fare. Now you're heading to where the trains are doing pickup. You have one that may go left for northbound, one that may go right for
Hmm.
southbound, but then off of that there's the ones to the bathroom, ones to the candy shop, whatever it might be that you might. Is that too much? Or are we at that point of thinking where, yeah, you need a little bit of mobility in there to know, hey, the smoother surface off of the roughest surface is to the candy shop. The surface that has this kind of feel, I mean, obviously, I'm not getting down on the floor and reading B-A. Okay, I got it, bathroom. Um, are
Right.
we at that point, or is that still just too much jeopardy? Because I mean, most of us are using the same places time and time again, but
Yeah.
getting caught up in the same. Now, where I know if I'm here, I should be able to veer on an angle to find one of the bathrooms and stuff like that. Where are we with this, Marco?
Yeah, I think like we still have a ways to go. I think that different spaces are better than others. Some, to your point, do go down to that granular level of detail in terms of,
Yeah,
okay, now we
yeah,
have a change in direction here. For those who don't know, those are called decision points when it comes
yes,
to tactile warning surface indicators. And that's for you to make a decision as to where you're going to turn next or where you're going to go. But for example, if you go into a hospital as a sighted person, you'll notice that sometimes they have different colored lines as to what direction to go on. And they say if you follow the red line, you go down to the operating facilities. If you follow the blue line, you go down to visitors waiting area. It's kind of like that, but from a tactile perspective. So it's really giving you that indication of if you follow this line, you're going to go in this direction, as you mentioned, Kelly. And I think that many spaces are doing well at that, but many other spaces, especially in older subways and things like this, have some room for improvement. Like I went to New York City back in 2015, and this is before I was really in the nuance of being an accessibility consultant. And I can't tell you whether or not they even use TWSIs or tactile warning at all in an older
right,
subway line like that. Whereas in the Toronto downtown core, maybe that's been much more of a sticking point and something that has actually been addressed because of the AODA over the last several years, and because there's litigation that is involved in making sure that these spaces are safe as well. So I don't want it to get to the point where people do this because they're afraid of fines. I want them to
right.
do it because they know it's the right thing to do and that everybody is able to interact in the same way in their physical environments. So it's just about education, Kelly, and it's really about letting people know that again, this is not just for some aesthetical beauty thing. That this is actually serving a core purpose, and I think that more people should be educated on how these work and why that they're there.
Here, here. Marco, fantastic conversation. Thanks for bringing this forward and so many interesting things to talk about on it. We will definitely have to revisit because, hey, man, they're useful. They don't have to be ugly. They can be quite serviceable and a part of that environment to where maybe you, as a person who may not need them, not even aware they're really there, but yet very much so for those who need them. Marco, we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Kelly. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Check Marco out also again on Audio Book Review, discussing his book, and of course back here on our program in 2 weeks. Join us for these great conversations. And Nisreen, for yourself at the point you're at, do you use a lot of these kinds of indicators that when you're traveling? Do you need them for the most part?
Absolutely. They're so helpful. And how about you?
Oh yeah. I I think about people like, and again, as I've watched them change over time, especially at corners. where you wonder about walkers and stuff like that. I mean, when I first used them, well, the only person I wondered about, I can't even say person, I won't be that self-centered, but only people I thought about it for was those of us who are low vision and blind, but not necessarily. I mean, the rounded corners to me were for people in a wheelchair. It would become incredibly frustrating when they were covered with snow. But then people using walkers, how much does that matter to them? How much of a tripping hazard could some of these things be
Mm.
as they start to go to pieces? So really cool. Really appreciate Marco getting into that with us. And we'll try to do a little more. Nizreen, anything else on social media before we run away from that's going on out there?
No, but I just want you guys to participate in our poll question of the day, and you could follow us on Twitter and Instagram. By the way, do we say Twitter or X anymore? I'm so used
I'm
to
saying
Twitter.
both. I Today's a Twitter day for me. Generally, I'm saying X, so I
I'm
think we
back and
better
forth
stick to what we're
between that.
supposed to.
So yes. So follow us on X and Instagram at Kelly and Co AMI. Follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube. If you missed any previous episodes, you can go tune in and watch that or listen to it on the pod on any podcast platform and on our YouTube channel, Kelly and Company.
Thanks, Niz. Appreciate it. Uh, Mr. Babcock, which one do you use? Do you say X or Twitter, or do you mix them around too?
I say X. At least I want to say that I say X.
Yeah.
Most of the time it comes out that way. Although, I haven't been over there in quite a while. I'm a Mastodon
Uh,
user myself.
yes, you like your
Mm.
Mastodon. Have you been exploring Blue Sky in any capacity?
Don't tell my wife that yes, I did set up a new social media network net
Oh.
last week, so it might take up some of my time. So yes, I am on Blue Sky Payon like everywhere else.
Okay, I'm going to ask one question before we get into things. Your accessibility experience with it so far, for those who are thinking of, I'm leaving X. Uh, they working on it? Is it a work in progress to your knowledge, which is what I've heard on Blue Sky?
That's what I've heard as well. I can't say that I've observed that. The experience isn't horrible. And like on some of these other social networks, there are third party apps that make the experience better. I think one of them is called Skeets, and that is an option for you to use on your iPhone or on the Mac. Unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, Android is stuck with the Blue Sky app, and I say stuck with because there's so much clutter there that you have to navigate through in order to see your posts.
Yeah, I heard there's a little work to do to set things up. Okay. Since October 2022, we've talked a lot about AI on the program. Believe it or not, folks, Michael is here with creative ways to use AI in his life at the moment. So, how are you leveraging it right now?
So ChatGPT is the primary AI that I'm using. And when we say AI, well, when I say AI, Kelly, what's the first thing you think of?
I think of Chat GPT and I think
Yeah.
of it doing things in the background that we would not necessarily use, but your workplace might.
Right, right. And speaking of the workplace, you got to be really careful with this, and I'll mention that here in a minute. But AI is not just Chat GPT, but because OpenAI came out with their tool back in I think it was it had to have been November 2023 or 2022, and everyone is was jumping on that to use it. When you hear AI, you think Chat GPT, even though there are, as I said, other options. I'm using it to include or to create creative replies to emails. And here's one of the things that you got to be careful with. And we've got a policy at AT Guys for using AI with customer information, because you don't want to just go dump all of the customer information for your email into OpenAI, because you don't know how that information is being used.
Right.
However, if someone sends you an email that says, "Hey, I just got a new iPhone and I can't get my AfterShokz headset to pair with them. How do I get my AfterShokz headset back into pairing mode?" I might jump over to ChatGPT, chat.com now, by the way, and you type in, create me a email that will help this customer with getting this specific headset into pairing mode. It'll go out, do the research, then generate an email based on the feedback I've given it about how I like to write and what my writing style is. And honestly, it never comes back perfect the first time. So I might be
Right,
like,
of
no,
course.
that's not a word I would use. And it's, I'm seeing it learn that, maybe I don't want to always say, I hope you're having a beautiful, or I hope you're having a wonderful day, or this message finds you well. I'm like, no, don't put that in my emails anymore, because that's not how I write.
And will it
Uh,
remember that for the next time you use it?
if you pay them, it will.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So it does have a limited memory. It's funny. I was playing with one of the models earlier today, and it said thinking. I'm like, you are not thinking. You're just trying to procrastinate to give you more time.
Oh, you
Uh,
really are a
and
worker. Human, really learning.
exactly. Another Another thing that I'm using it for is gathering thoughts and compiling them. Have you ever had this where you've got 1,000 thoughts about a reply to an email or about a project you
Yep.
want to do, and you need to organize them into an actionable steps? Because
Yeah.
that happens to me all the time.
Yeah, and it's overwhelming, so you're jotting things down quickly so you don't forget.
Mhm. With the Chat GPT app specifically, oh well, with the chat website, with the chat website, you can go in and create a new chat and say, "Hey, today I need to get these tasks completed, and I might give you a couple more tasks. Wait to help me compile these until I tell you I'm ready." And then you start dumping random thoughts. I need to have this meeting with this person, and we need to schedule this recording, and we need to do this, and you can just keep dumping those ideas into chat gpt, and if it's working properly, it'll keep asking you, is there anything else, is there anything else? And then when you're done giving it those ideas, you can say, I'm done, let's compile these into actionable steps, and then it will give you what actions it thinks you should do. May or may not be right, but it's a good way to get started with making things happen. Also, do you ever call, oh, I'm horrible about the phone. I don't call people a lot of times unless they're like, hey, can you jump on a Zoom meeting early? But
Yes.
do you ever call someone and be like, hey, I just need to talk something through with you?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So with Chat GPT, you can type things through, but I just discovered this today, even on the web page now. It used to only be in the app, but on the chat.com website, there's a button that says start voice mode. And what that
Oh,
allows you
nice.
to do is have a voice conversation with Chat GPT, and it's realistic and human sounding. And of course, you can interrupt it like you can interrupt your friends, and just talk things back and forth with it. And it has a great sounding voice to converse with you.
Wow. What a way to work
Yeah.
things out and feel someone's there for you in that aspect. Okay, where else are you going with it?
Uh, One other thing I got to mention. Some people know that last month I was almost about ready. Well, I had accepted it, and things happened, and that position fell through. But I accepted a position with an organization, and
Yes.
honestly, I didn't feel like I had the qualifications that were posted on the job description. So what I did is ChatGPT has a memory, and it's already been fed my resume that I have. And I took that job description. I said, hey, help me with crafting a cover letter and a resume designed around the requirements for this job description so I can apply for this. And it gave me a fairly decent sounding resume. I had to go make some changes to it, like with a lot of the content that you get from ChatGPT. But once I did that, I applied for the position, and due to budgetary constraints, I wasn't able to start that position. But the point is, I was given a verbal offer of employment for that position, and it was a substantial change in my career and the amount of money I was making, and that is amazing because you can use these AI systems to craft a unique resume using keywords, because we all know that AI is filtering out resumes based on not having keywords from the description. So why not use it in the opposite way and build your resume based on the description and make sure that you meet those requirements?
Fantastic. Scary, but fantastic because of what can happen down the road. Okay, what about development and automation? Where do you want to go there?
So there's a tool on the Mac called Keyboard Maestro. Okay. Keyboard Maestro allows you to automate things on your Mac. So you can say, anytime I open this file, I want these actions to be taken. you have to have an analytical mindset and say, hey, these are the things that need to happen when when this occurs. And you need to then add specific actions to what they call your Keyboard Maestro macros. And I wanted to rename some files and make them a more unified file renaming, but I couldn't figure out what I needed to do. So I jumped over to ChatGPT. I said, hey, I have access to Keyboard Maestro. Here's the task I need to complete. How can you help me with doing that? And it came back and said, oh, add these actions to this macro, and then create a second macro and add these actions so that happens. And now, not only are my files automatically renamed, but when I jump into Parallels, my caps lock becomes disabled and it becomes an insert key, which means that I can use laptop layout with JAWS without having to do anything.
Wow.
When I switch back over to Mac OS, my caps lock key becomes the Mac OS voiceover modifier and no longer an insert key. That has saved me so much time.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
yeah.
What going back and forth? What ease.
Yeah, exactly. And I do a lot with WordPress sites as well. And one of the things that ChatGPT helps me do with come up with some ideas on how we can automate WordPress and make modifications to plugins that may exist, or create snippets that, I don't know, add alt text to the logo because I want
Right.
to have alt text on the logo of a website.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. It really is.
It is, and it's like having an assistant with you. I've explored other AI features like Perplexity or Gemini. Unfortunately, these tools, and I even got a free year of Perplexity Pro because Zoom was giving it out to some of their customers. But I keep going back to ChatGPT because I like the interface. It's been consistent for the most part, and they also keep adding new features. I will say there's a tool called FS Companion, which allows you to ask JAWS specific questions using AI. And that's a great interface, and they've built it out to fit the needs of JAWS users.
Fantastic. As usual. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks, Michael. Really thorough, lots to think about there. And of course, lots of different ways to use AI and really make it work to you. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Kelly. Have a great couple of minutes. I almost said show.
Yes. We're out of here, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate Nizreen Abdul-Majid being on the show. All of our contributors visiting with us today. Mark Aflalo handling things behind the glass. That's the proverbial glass. Check out our podcast from your podcast platform of choice. Maybe give us a rating and review if you would. On our next show, Amanda Shakarchier joins us. She's going to have her thoughts on Shawn Mendes' new album. Plus, she's off to the concert today. And Julia Caranchis is back with our nutrition chat. Fedora's off to you. Good day.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.